Welcome to a Curious Yogi Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby, joined by living masters and awakening friends. We're here to illuminate your practice as we explore what it means to walk the yogi's path, unfold peace from within, and live the vision of oneness. I'm so delighted you're here. Now let's get curious. Holy smokes, we made it. I made it to the season finale, the end of season 4 of a Curious Yogi podcast. I made it, you made it, we're all here. And I'm coming to you from northern India, where I'm taking a little time off after our Himalayan retreat this week. And it feels really sweet to be closing out this season from here, which is where it all started. And the inspiration for this little podcast project with talks with inspiring yogis and meditators all began. And what a journey it has been, creating these spaces for conversation, connecting with listeners and yogis from all over the world, and getting to share so much wisdom for our sadhana and for our life. And I also want to give a massive thank you and shout out to the Patreon community. Honestly, it makes me a little emotional. You are not large in number, but you are massive in supporting me in a Curious Yogi, and just the contribution to the satsangs and the online groups have been such a wonderful part of this project. So thank you for showing up, for your presence and participation. I cannot wait to keep going with this when I kick back off in May. So, for this final episode, I'm not doing a best of because honestly, every episode felt like such a jewel and treasure in its own way. This is a little more like a walk back through the season, a chance to highlight some of the timeless nuggets that came through and maybe inspire you to go back and re listen to some of these beautiful talks. And honestly, I think that's such an incredible part about yoga and meditation and sadhana and these spiritual teachings is that the wisdom is timeless, whether it's written 2,000 years ago in the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Vedic scriptures, or repeated through the guru's mouth, or just sitting and having coffee with a friend and hearing these topics and themes and practices again and again and again. And that's the work of the sadhak, is to keep on hearing the truth, Shravan Mana Nididhyasan, hearing it, churning it, knowing it. So as I listened back, I kept hearing one thread this season, though, that really returned through all these different voices and perspectives. And that is that yoga is a path of remembering. Remembering what practice is for, remembering how to meet the mind, remembering how to stay present in the mess and beauty of being human, remembering how to listen, how to serve, how to remain open. And maybe most deeply, and I would say most importantly, essentially, remembering who we truly are. And there was something in this season for everyone, whether you're brand new to yoga and meditation, a longtime meditator, or a teacher. These teachings are universal. They meet all of us where we are. So to kick off, let's begin with Jyoti, who really brings us to the heart of it all. Why sadhana matters, why spiritual life matters, why love matters, why peace matters, and why conviction in the truth of who you are matters.
I think the inclination for people to come together as one um, is obvious no matter where you look. And you'll see people all over the world at all times trying to unify in oneness in whatever way they know how. And I just figure as long as people are questioning and moving in the direction of oneness, that opens more and more. And the answers come more and more. And you create an atmosphere of unity in a world that can, probably always, but, these days it seems to be just a little like a disconnect a bit. Um, and to be secure in the knowledge that the connection of oneness is real. I think what I see is a great movement in that direction, which I think is just fantastic.
Hmm.
Like like what you do and your podcast and bringing this information to as many people as you can. It's like, I don't know, it's like a movement of love. I think that would be an important point to actually have the doubtless certainty and faith in the reality of oneness. That would be the conviction. That would be what would be important. And then the power of that, I believe, carries you forward, carries you bigger, carries you more towards an atmosphere and a life and friends who are, I don't want to say like-minded because it's more like like-hearted.
Nice word.
Um, but to really have faith in the truth, I think that's very, very powerful. And I think that is kind of the strongest move forward or move in the direction of peace.
Jyoti, I love that. Like-hearted. That's why we're here. That's why this podcast is here. It's so beautiful. And Jyoti reminds us that spiritual life, that sadhana, isn't some extra thing we tack onto our lives. It's the ground, it's the foundation, it's the orientation, and it shapes how we practice, how we love, and how we live. Next is the one and only Nicki Doan, whose integrity lights a fire in me. She's so spicy and passionate and knowledgeable. And I loved this conversation so much. One thing I kept hearing this season and actually throughout this whole podcast is the invitation to honor what is, not to remake yoga into something convenient or comfortable, but to meet it as a living spiritual whole tradition. And Nicki takes us right there.
Why can't we just honor what is? And I think it's because the Western mind is unfortunately, you know, likes to pull the surface of things, right? Oh, I like the poses. The shapes are nice as if it's just a physical thing. But yoga's been popular now for more than 20 years in the West. And I do think people are ready to start to go a little bit deeper because by definition, in the Yoga Sutras, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the quieting and the calming of the vrittis being the agitations and the fluctuations of our mind, right? And they come in self-limiting, self-defeating, self-judging, and self-doubting tendencies, right? We all have that. I read an article by some scientist that said we have upwards of, 10,000 thoughts a day running through our head. Luckily, we don't remember them all, but it's amazing. And many of them are of the afflicted variety. So if we keep coming back to the definition, yoga is to quiet your mind. I was just talking about it in class yesterday. And so the poses, the physical practice is the means to the end, which is peace of mind. So obviously, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about it. Your body is your temple. Mr. Iyengar said your asanas are your prayers. So we have to take care of our body. It's the only one we get, right? However, this is a temporary situation, but the essence of who we are is eternal, right? So most of our suffering happens right up here between our ears. So I think it's very important, and it is my personal responsibility to keep reminding people that yoga is about spirit, that we do have this spiritual body, that it is about quieting our mind, calming our nervous system, so that we can find more peace of mind and ease of heart. So that's my mission.
Yes, Nicki, it's my mission too. I so feel one pointed with her in that. And it's a good reminder. What is yoga for? Yoga is sacred and it's not superficial. I think it's such a disservice to a spiritual life to associate it with these external practices, and really remembering that when we honor the tradition, when we really let it in, it can be a doorway into so much depth and understanding and peace, like Nicki said, within. The asana is one doorway out of many. And do we just stand at the doorway? No, the doorway has the purpose and the goal of providing a framework that we can then step through. And I think that's really where I'm inspired also, is to, in my own practice, to continually step through these doorways and explore and discover what works for me, for my unique nervous system, which is going to be different from you, which is going to be different from them. And it's all about coming back home, back to that place of not only peace, but knowing who we are. So when we step through this doorway, if we're really on the spiritual path, then the practice asks something of our mind. It asks us to observe, to steady, and also let go of our demand for quick results. So to speak to this, I want to share a clip from Katharine, who so beautifully reminds us the importance of meditation and the quiet, honest relationship that we have with our practice.
One instruction he gives that is really, I think, helpful is he says something like, sit with no expectations. And that as an attitude to sit with is a really helpful attitude. It's like, it's in a way, so in the Gita, there are verses on action, karma yoga. And the principle of that is you act, but you surrender the results. You don't hold on to any sense that the results should be this way or that they should belong to me. And in a way, meditation, when he says sit without kind of expecting anything, it's the same. You just put yourself on your mat, or where your seat, your chair, your bed, whatever, wherever you're meditating, but leave aside any thought that this should be a certain kind of meditation, that leave aside any judgment about it, about what a good meditation will be like, what a bad meditation will be like, and close your eyes and be aware that the being that is present as your existence there's no distance to this being. It is what you are. It is your very sense of being alive, existing. That is what you are. And that's seen. So what you see when you close your eyes is that. Everything is that. There is only that. Everything that we think we experience is actually being known through that and is that. But in that moment of meditation, we can just close our eyes and let that be known, let that be recognized.
Katharine really points us to the subtlety of practice, that meditation isn't a performance and it's not about getting somewhere fast. It's a relationship, a deepening, a returning, and a letting go of expectations, which I think is something we all can continually work on. In that episode with Katharine, we dive into the Bhagavad Gita and its central teachings. Well, those teachings in the Gita are really the yogi's guide for living and acting in the world. We also have Patanjali, which is the meditator's guide. And the Patanjali Yoga Sutras is another essential scripture we dove into this season with Deep Priya. She is a master at Patanjali, and Deep really carries that thread forward so well about reminding us that the path is to stay steady, humble, sustained. Meditation is essential, and how scripture, practice, and patience matter on this path. Deep distills Patanjali's teachings so that we can be reminded that We're not forcing the mind into silence because that's not possible. And she offers guidance in how to rest as awareness while movement of the mind and the world goes on.
It is all of that, it definitely quiet the mind, transcend the mind, become aware that the mind has been transcended, become aware that the mind is now engaged. Patanjali start by the word atta. Atta yoga nushasanam. And atta means now. It's not the same hatha yoga is a different word. But atta means now. And, if you're a human being, you're like a circle. And you're divided in moments. When the moments touch the time, we have at the same time the moment in time and eternity. It's just eternity touching in different way. Now I'm a young girl. Now I'm an older lady. Now I'm having babies. Now, like all the field of experience, because as human beings, we have entered time. And our whole experience is past, present, future, past, present, future, past, present, future. So the moment itself, if we think about our life, I'm just asking anyone to ask that question to themselves. Have you been ever at another time than now? Never. You might in that now remember the past, or you might in that now anticipate the future. But now is not just a fragment. It's not just a sequence. This is why. This is where you understand just from the very first word is taking us somewhere else. And then this famous sutra, very famous sutra, for us anyway, because this is a sutra we study a lot, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The word Nirod, if it's talked about by someone who knows a meditative space, the person's going to sit and think, I should not think. Well, good luck. It's like the ocean should not have waves. So if we begin to consider this as a question of control, number one, it's not going to work. And number two, we're going to make ourselves very miserable because we're not going to succeed. And we're going to think we should accomplish something like that. The word nirod, nir is negation, not, and road means the obstacle. So it's that, nirod is that which removes the obstacle. What's the obstacle? The obstacle is the movement, is the outer movement. A wave is a disturbance traveling in time and space. That's the scientific definition of a wave. Now, a wave of perception, it comes, it stays, it goes. But what Nirod does, it's a very specific state of the mind where the mind is open in such a way that it blocks the thoughts. It's not something I do. It's not something that can be done. I cannot even lie down and sleep. Sleep comes. Samadhi comes. We just have to prepare the ground for it. So in the state of Nirod, the vrittis, or the waves of perception, they simply cannot rise. They're not rising at that time. And we don't have to be afraid we haven't lost them. They're going to come back. But, at that time, they cannot rise. And because they don't rise, we perceive the lake. We perceive the still water of the lake of the mind, instead of perceiving all the movements of the mind. Which is why Patanjali Zen says, he says, and at that time, I was Tanam, you are at that time establishing Swa Rupe, Swa true, Rup or Rupe here, with the Sanskrit as different declination. And so you are established in your true nature. You don't want to move. there is nothing pulling you. Even the joyful things are not pulling you, and you're not asleep.
Thank you, Dee. I also love in that episode with Dee Priya when she says that it's not possible whatsoever to understand the Yoga Sutras without meditation. It's simply not. It's like learning how to swim by reading a book on swimming, but never going in the water. And I think it's so fascinating because most of modern postural yoga that we see in the world, also in India and everywhere in the West, it's based largely on Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And I'm just really curious how many folks are not meditating. So that's a point of inquiry there. And then, of course, the practice meets life, fear, uncertainty, limitation, the parts of being human that we cannot bypass. And to give us a great Mahavakya, a great quote that I just love, and I've kept this with me since it was shared, is my delightful friend, Vijay.
Yeah, fear, it creates the sense that you have to become something specific, otherwise you are not worthy or have no value. It's fearful. It's all, and when the moment there's fear, there's no freedom. Because then your choice is not based on clarity, but on need and fear. And that's how it is being in the ego. And then coming back to the idea of I, you know, if you then can know that the I is eternal, immortal, always be, forever being, whatever we call that, pure consciousness, God, space, energy, nothingness, shunya, I don't know, anything. But then when you realize that you've been identifying with something that is not you and is not real, and then behind that has been standing forever the self, the true self, saying, hey, hello, I'm here. Wake up, why don't you see me? And I think I said this before, but this quote I love from Meister Eckhart, this German, 12th century German mystic, Christian mystic, who said, God is like someone who during a game of hide and seek clears his throat in the hope to be found.
That's so beautiful.
This is so beautiful and so funny. Yeah. It's like God is forever clearing his throat in the hope to be found, you know, clearing it through everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. And I love all my conversations with Vijay. Everything is God clearing its throat. What if we met every single situation, circumstance that comes into our way as just another invitation to turn ourselves back to the truth of who we are, which is that higher self, that higher knowledge, that true Param Atma, the supreme self, the God-like nature within all of us. And to carry on this thread, I have the ever fresh, ever inspiring, and wonderful Rodrigo, who reminds us that yoga is not about escaping life. It's about meeting it so fully that even from there, even from the lowest of the low, freedom becomes possible. And I am so in awe of Rodrigo. He is such an inspiration, and he's like one of the coolest guys I've ever met. So here's Rodrigo.
It's liberating, Bob. You know why? Because I'm talking to a disabled person point of view here, because there are not many places in society where we get to have agency, where we get to take decisions for ourselves, you know. So the things that you get in the yoga class, in the yoga setting, the power that you have, that empowerment of have that embodied experience and know what is good for you at that particular moment, you're going to take that for life. It is liberating.
Do you think like that experience was something like going back to when you had your injury that brought you back so quickly and like, you know, catapulted you into where you are now?
Of course, of course. Yeah. That's a sure thing, you know. That's a sure thing. That's a sure thing. I like to call that part of my life like hugging a cactus.
Okay. Okay, let's
because
hear
like
that.
yeah, because like I was so depressed, and I used to cry so often, and wasn't a very comfortable place to visit. But like every day I was going there, like hugging a cactus slowly. How do you hug a cactus? You go with gentleness. Sometimes I used to cry in shavasana all the time. Boom, the silence come in, the gravity pulls me down, I cry. It's too much grief, you know. But like revisiting this grief, hugging the cactus, there was a time that's like, okay, you're here. There is joy here as well, by the way. They coexist, you know. So like you become, aware of it, and you've got a choice. You're not so reactive anymore, you know. You don't run away from it anymore. It's a very, very powerful thing to do.
The continual holding two truths at once, grief and joy. And I absolutely love that unforgettable phrase of hugging the cactus, which reminds us to stop resisting the pain, the unknown, the discomfort, and instead soften and allow it to teach us as it so beautifully and profoundly taught Rodrigo. And as the season kept unfolding, I just love the way things unfold. Yoga and spiritual practice and spiritual life started to reveal itself as something deeply relational, also a way of listening. A way of caring, a way of looking honestly at why we do what we do. The frame widened at a certain point in this season. And we were really reminded that the practice isn't only inward. It shapes how we meet others, how we serve, and what's really motivating us underneath it all. Yoga is alive. It's not something we just do in the ashram, we do on the yoga mat. It's how we live our lives. It's how we meet not only our individual circumstances, but how we meet others. And University of California professor and PhD, Mr. Philippe, brings us back to relationality through understanding empathy and motivation from the point of science-backed meditation. Here's Philippe.
Yeah, I mean, well, just to take empathy, for example. So take something that's a little bit easier to grasp, which is look at all the full range of individual differences in people's empathic resonance, ability to experience empathic resonance with another human being. There are some people who are so shut down, suppressed, repressed, who really, we could say, lack, at least demonstrably, empathy for others. Then you can go, there's individual differences, and there's a huge range to people who, we've met, who immediately you feel like their empathic energy, their empathic concern, their ability to have empathic resonance with you. So that's a huge range of honest individual differences. So similarly, you could imagine, right? We are more than 8 billion human beings at the moment on Mother Earth. There must be a range in how should we call it? Abilities to refine and make very sensitive different aspects of conscious awareness, right? To see things that maybe other people don't see, to respond to color, shape, form, or energies that maybe other people don't see. So there have to be a wide range of sensitivities in human beings to be able to feel different signals in others, to be able to respond, or even to be able to love and have compassion. And that's where it goes back, in the beginning of this conversation to the, ethics and intentionality, because that sensitivity and enhanced or refined skills can be used for good or for bad, to hurt or to harm, to help or scaffold, depending on the intentionality, the motivation. Which that's one thing that's I keep thinking. I hope that's continually refined in meditation centers, and also just in learning right? Our Western notion of learning is I have to get through this learning and, just enough and learn some skills so I can get a job, so I can make money, so I can beat out other people, so I can be important. That's often the intention, as opposed to how can I serve? How can I dissolve? How can I uplift all, the common denominator, not just me, which is a different intention.
Yeah, and it's interesting because even when you first said that about that we're affected relationally, I thought oh, someone could affect me, and how that's the sort of default way that the mind works. But actually, if we start to all shift our intention in that I'm affecting others, or that the relation is going out for me, it's not just what's coming into me. I have to keep myself here, but actually having that awareness that what we are putting out and how we're putting it out is going to affect the world around us. And then it kind of changes how one actually steps out and into the world.
Yes. And imagine, I know you teach yoga and meditation, and imagine, beginning, how I walk into a room and hear 20 yogi and yoginis. And my intention is, can I give them a sequence of asanas? Can I bring them to an experience of their breath? Can I bring them to an experience of their mind so these beings can to move along the path to awakening, to freedom, so that they then can reverberate that when they leave this studio, when they meet other people? What I am part of this massive movement of mind opening, mind heart opening.
Heart-centered folks on this Curious Yogi podcast space. It's super cool because Philippe comes from a science background. He comes from a Buddhist meditation background, but we can all relate to how interconnected we are. We can all relate to that clear, tangible understanding that our intention matters, how we show up in this world matters. And as yogis, as meditators, it's an expression of our understanding of the teachings. And another important relational part of yoga is listening. And Sheila brought such a tenderness to listening as a practice, not just listening better, but listening as a part of yoga. And I loved the episode with Sheila, if you haven't listened to it, because she touches so much on women's health and yoga. And it was such a cool conversation. In this clip here, the invitation is to think about how we listen in our practice.
Yoga is essentially listening. And I find this so beautiful and hard. I think we have to go back a little to starting to. So this is a process of deep listening. There are so many ways to listen. So first of all, who am I in this world? And what are the ideas that are placed on me? How can I just be me without the need to do everything that I have been taught to do? And this is really the big, issue with women and men and burnout and stress and performance. And I always say this to my students, where are you going? So that is number one. So what is mine and what is just placed on me? And then then we have to learn to also feel the variation and the fluctuation of our energy. And how can we do that if we always do the same thing? If we drink a lot of coffee all day long, then it will be very hard to hear your own natural energy. So I think a lot of the listening is about not doing instead of doing. I hate the idea of morning routines and daily routines and stuff like that, because essentially we don't need to do anything more. We need to do less. But I think that maybe this is the process. Like there is no quick fix to learning to listen to your body and your mind and your soul. And I feel I always learn. Like I'm learning about myself every single day. Sometimes things just come up and I get so provoked or I get so annoyed or sad, and like I don't know where that came from. So then I try to sit with myself and be like, where did that come from? And sometimes I get it, and most of the time I don't. But also tracking your cycle. So learning to understand that there is actually a chemical balance in your body that will affect you. So estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, also LH, like luteal inducive hormone, and FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. Those 5 hormones do affect your mind, the way you think, the way you perceive the world. So basically, we are wearing so many different colored like sunglasses. Sometimes we'll see the world pink. Why? Because estrogen is there. But we just need to start like understanding this and tracking our cycle. And then we'll see. Because like I think I'm so unique, but I'm not. Like I basically feel the same way on the 22nd day of my cycle every single month. It doesn't matter what happened during the month. It's also chemistry. It's also physiology, and I find this humbling as well, and calming.
So much compassion, so much empathy, so much awareness. If you are a woman or you know a woman who practices yoga, please go back and listen to that episode as well as the episode with Myra, where we discuss so much about the cyclical nature of women's health and how it affects our practice and our ability to show up in life. The next topic or thread or theme of sadhana and yoga and living a spiritual life is one that has always felt really important to me, and that is of seva or service. And Reema, who is the author of the book Yogi's Way, reminds us that similarly to Philippe, that empathy and care aren't always separate from yoga. They are yoga when lived. And I think living a life of service is such an essential part of living a purposeful, meaningful life. And the way in which we serve can be expressed in a myriad of ways, but it is such a way to live the teachings of yoga, to live that space of oneness, not out of pity or out of superiority because you have or are better than somebody else, but actually rather in recognizing the oneness, in recognizing the sameness, in recognizing the truth of who we all are. Then what happens is when we go out into the world, we are living in service to that truth. So here's Reema to speak to that truth from a very beautiful and personal story.
It was such a big deal for me to shift my life so radically. And a year after I started working at that yoga studio, I went to India to see my grandfather. And he lived in this tiny tribal village in central India, Madhya Pradesh. And I went, and the first day I was there, I was like, I called him Bapuji. I said, Bapuji, I changed my life completely. Like I quit I'm teaching yoga full time. I'm so happy. Like I'm so strong in my body, and I feel like strong in my mind, and I'm just making all these tough decisions, but I just feel so good. And he turned around and he looked really upset. And he had this really stern look on his face. And he was like, Reema, this is not about you. He was like, he said, we do yoga for others. And then he took his hands and he said, service and spirituality go hand in hand. He interlaced his fingers. And we do, yoga helps us become personally fit and socially useful. And it was really powerful to hear those words, because I thought I understood that, that yoga is service and we do it for others. And I was teaching. So I'm like, I'm serving, I'm teaching full time and working at the studio. But it was still in my mind, like about me, like my peace and my health. And, and I want to share that. So there's just different levels of really feeling that motivation that it's not actually like it's like that peace of mind and health of body, they really are side effects of something bigger that's happening, that we're turning ourselves into these vessels to serve, and I thought I understood that, but I needed to hear that from my grandfather, that wow, like service and spirituality go together. And we're doing these practices, we're opening our knots and blocks so that we can be better servants.
I honestly got goosebumps when Reema shared that story. And it's such a beautiful example of her father, her grandfather, living in the village and teaching her about what yoga really is, and that it's not just about me as the individual, and that the motivation behind the practice is to be a better servant. I just so touched by that. And I think it's such an important teaching for us as practitioners to remember and to take with, and to not be so in our own practice that we forget about the world around us. So I love those last 3 clips from Philippe, Sheila, and Reema about the practical relationality of our practice. And yeah, we have to live in the world. So let's live in a world that is more intentional, more connected, softer, listening, and the pure motivation behind it. So, as we near to the end of our wonderful jewels here from season 4, I want to return to the deeper aspects beyond self improvement, beyond technique, beyond the constant project of trying to manage our experiences. These conversations point us toward the deeper heart of yoga, the openness, the guidance, and the remembering of what we truly are. So, the next 2 clips from 2 of my dear friends and teachers and wise elders, Abhaya and Hirdaya, bring us more into that more spacious awareness. So first we have Abhaya in the episode where she talks about who the guru is, who is the remover of darkness within us all, and how to live that illuminated space that the guru within reveals.
I think it's exactly that. Staying open with the wish to reach our highest potential and remaining open, vulnerable to realize our birthright. What is our birthright? That which is unborn. As Swamiji says, you are unborn and undying. What is unborn? That consciousness which never changes. And that is accessed through meditation. So there has to be an agreement between the disciple, the shishya, and the guru. The agreement is to keep learning and unfolding, not to duplicate ourselves as the guru or the teacher who is an embodiment, because my guru was male gender. I will not be male gender, right? So not to duplicate the guru's manifestation, but to duplicate, or no, duplicate's not a good word, to unfold into the awareness of that one who is living the unbroken state of enlightenment. So by remaining open, by remaining a curious yogi, to use the title of your podcast, to remain the curious yogi, then the teaching can keep entering. because, if we could learn it in 1 or 2 seconds, it would be wonderful. And the genuine guru assures us that we have reached it and we are that. But having been on this path and having lived with many, many genuine seekers doing genuine sadhana or spiritual practice, we have seen that it just doesn't take a second to reach there, though we've all matured in the knowledge. So we have to remain open and curious and genuine to keep moving forward, even though each step makes us more wonderful, more peaceful, and more able to perceive the oneness and all around. Yes. So for the student, for the seeker, for the inquirer who doesn't have a guru, the guru is always there because the guru is that pure consciousness. So even if someone doesn't meet an enlightened master, it's okay because just by being open and to go beyond the limitations of the human consciousness to unfold the higher dimension, Guru is there as that pure consciousness to speak to each one. So that's why I say God consciousness is everywhere, and there is no division between the work in India for an aspirant and the work in the Judeo-Christian tradition or in any other religious tradition.
Beautiful. I think that's important to remember for all of us listeners who are from all over the world, from different traditions, different cultures. And when you were speaking, I was just thinking of, this, I'm not sure, you'll probably know which scripture it comes from, but that idea or that mantra for me is when I take one step towards Guru, Guru takes 1,000 steps towards me. That if we just keep opening ourselves to that truth comes flooding in whatever way is meant for us.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I think that's from the modern scripture of the modern world. Take one step towards Guru, and Guru will take, 1,000 towards you. And it's the truth because Guru is God consciousness. It's that highest consciousness. So, like in the way when I heard Ramdas and read Ramdas when I was 14 and was wanting a guru just by wanting. And he's saying, no, don't try and come and find Neem Karoli. Just the yearning inside my being was genuine. And Guru did reach out towards me. And so even though it was a few more years till I met him, but we must keep all human beings, whether they're spiritual or not, must never shut themselves down and keep yearning to be better, to be kinder, to be more aware of that which is around them. And that is the best that we as human beings can do for the planet, for each other. Whether we're meditators or not meditators, we must keep staying open and yearning for higher and higher goodness.
Abhaya reminds us of the role of guidance, humility, openness. That awakening isn't something that the ego can just create or muster up or force or engineer. It happens, it's an unfolding. It's like when a flower blossoms. Does nature force it open? No. It gets watered, it gets sunlight, it gets nurtured to blossom on its own. So that's the role of the guru's vision, is to support that blossoming. And Hirdaya points us all the way back, or rather circles us back, or rather circles us up to what is already here, the self beyond the passing experience, beyond all the movement, beyond all the grasping. And I think this is so important because it's this question for practitioners and seekers for time immemorial. Okay, I sit in my meditation seat. I have this profound, spacious, peaceful experience. And then I open my eyes and I'm filled with the chaos of the world. How do I remain established? And Hirdaya points us there.
Like we were saying before, like you're not who you have
taken yourself to be, and you don't need to struggle and make so many efforts to try and prove, something that you already are. And also, I just want to say, when you were talking about the good, the bad, and there's on one side the happiness and the joy and the uplifting part, the positive, and on the other side there's the, what feels painful and and a lot of discomfort. And so we're always trying to remove the discomfort so that we can have the positive. So I'm going to say something interesting here, because the sky is neither, right? Who we are is actually neutral. So this struggle to try and push away the negative so that I can only have the positive, you're going against what's natural. There's always going to be both, right? As long as you've got day, you're going to have night. As long as you have happiness, you're going to have unhappiness, just like you were saying. As long as you have comfort, you're going to have discomfort. It's just a matter of time. These are natural cycles of mind. And so to try and change that because of some idea that I have, because I don't know that the truth has nothing to do with these pairs of opposites. The truth is the sky, and the sky contains them all. So now I'm not struggling with the pairs of opposites. I've stepped back. I've paused on this involvement with the pairs of opposites, and that's my victory, even though it doesn't look like it. It looks like nothing. It looks like absolutely nothing to my mind. And the mind doesn't like the feeling of nothing, so it keeps trying to create something. So if you can just be with that feeling of stepping back and not calling it nothing, call it space, call it sky, call it your neutral witness, whatever you want to call it, that's you. You're already that. But it won't happen if you don't pause, right? And this whole idea, because of this paradigm that we live with all the, busyness that we were talking about, there's this sense that I have to make efforts and produce something. And so then I take that into my sadhana, and I think I have to make efforts and produce something. How can you produce that which you already are? So you can't. It's impossible. There's no amount of hours. It's not like, you're going to do this many hours and then you're going to produce it. You are simply being that which you already are. So in any moment when those difficulties come, like you were bringing up before, if we can remember that we're already that, like I'm the sky right now, even with this difficulty, even with this uncomfortable thought, even with this bad feeling, right? I keep waiting that when the bad feeling goes away, then I'll be the space. When the difficulty goes away, then I'll be the space, right? So if I can somehow come out of that whole paradigm, which happens when I pause, suddenly it's like I'm already that, no matter what looks like it's going on in the world. It's like if I'm asleep and I'm dreaming and I'm having a bad dream, right? And I'm trying to solve a problem in the dream. And I'm making all kinds of efforts in the dream to solve the problem in the dream. And then I wake up. Like it's irrelevant what I was doing in the dream. And even if I made like 50 hours of efforts in the dream, when I wake up, those hours mean nothing. They belong to the dream, which isn't real. So it's like we just need to remember that we're already woken up. And that's where these kinds of conversations are so vital, because we won't on our own, when we're just driving in our car or moving from one busy thing to the next busy thing, we don't easily, let's put it that way, think like this or remember this or create this kind of field of resonance that happens when we talk like this. And so it's very, very important.
I love that we hear what we need to hear or rehear when we need to hear it. And the last point about busyness is so relatable to me right now, even though I'm up in the mountains in India, really feeling fulfilled and living a purposeful life. It's busy. A lot of action goes on. And it's even more important when we're more busy to find even those few minutes of stillness, of silence, of quiet, where we come to that space, like Hirdaya says, where we don't need to prove anything to anybody. We don't need to achieve. We don't need to gain. We don't need to be afraid. We don't need to grasp. We just are as that reality. And then, of course, action happens. And sometimes that action comes in the wave of busyness and responsibility, and it intensifies. And then sometimes it's a little less. But the main thing is to have that groundwork. And that's what Hirdaya reminds me of again and again and again. She's a beautiful teacher and a beautiful friend. And maybe that's what makes Zach such a beautiful place to end. After all the philosophy, all the knowledge, all the depth, all the reminders of truth and oneness, we still come back to the intimacy of the individual path of our sadhana and choosing our sadhana. And I feel someone who holds that paradox so gracefully is Zach. He's a dear friend. He's my guru brother. And he expresses in this clip that the truth may be one, but the seeker is deeply personal. Our path is individual, and we have to keep choosing our sadhana. Each of us has to walk our own path. So here is one of the most elated and delighted yogis in my life and a dear inspiration, Zach, on our sadhana. And also, good company.
To be a seeker is to be very unique. I mean, there is only, of 8+ billion people, there's only, of those 8 billion, actually a small group that are genuinely interested in searching for some meaning that is deeper than just what is offered to them in this human incarnation. And that's very rare and you should, for all the listeners, if you're interested, you should actually, not in a sort of egoful pat yourself on the back kind of way, but you should feel a sense of, maybe privilege is a loaded word, but you should feel a sense of greatness that you are a seeker, that you are someone who's interested in that, because it's very rare, and it means that there is an opportunity for you to know, to be satisfied. I mean that, and we're just like, look around at your friends, at your family, at your community, at your school, at your town, village, city, country, world. You're not going to find a lot of people who are living satisfaction. In fact, you might find nobody living satisfaction. So it's very rare, and you should search out good company. You should listen to Bobby's podcast. You should just keep at it. And it is a difficult work, but you did mention my work, and it's interesting. One thing that me and the people that I work with, Sarah and Jyoti, we always agree on is that we're not working to work. We're not working, like, yes, you need to make money, okay, you need to survive in the world. But you can devote it to Guru. You can actually dedicate everything. I mean, Krishna in the Gita says to Arjun, devote all your actions to me. Well, you can do that. You can actually devote everything that you're doing to your highest self. So am I working to make money so that I can buy food and have a house, all those things? Maybe on like a basic level, yes. But if you can do that, then you can then live a life to study, to tune into your highest self. So, and not just be working constantly. So for the sake of working. Because Swamiji would often say, like, you can spend your whole life working, and at the end, you get like as a gift from your company or something, a gold watch. That's all you get. And then you're, whatever, 60, 70, and then you're going to study then. It's like, the opportunity might be lost at that point. There's only so much time that we have, and it's precious. This incarnation is precious. Because we could have been born an animal. We could have been born we could have been born not a human being, and a human being is the only species that has the capacity to know their highest self. So it's a very rare and special opportunity. And so I do try to, no matter what's going on, no matter what work is there, no matter if it's a lot of work or if there's stress, whatever, it's so important to keep your attention on what actually matters, why I am here, why we are all here. And that is it helps with the whiplash. It really does. It's a guiding light. And it just means that you know what's actually important and what's not important. And there's a word that Swamiji would often use, discrimination, which it means something a little bit different now, but basically discernment, to use the power of discernment to find what works for you, what company is good for you, what situation is good for you. And by good for you, it just means what actually is conducive to be able to practice, to be able to meditate without someone coming and shaking you awake or something. You want to make sure you're surrounded by the company that appreciates what you're doing, that appreciates that practice is so important.
And that feels like the perfect closing note. Sincere, grounding, totally freeing. There is no one right way to walk this path. It's unique and diverse in infinite ways, just like each and every human being. But there is that universal quest, that universal spark within us all. And it does ask for something. It asks for honesty. It asks for devotion. It asks for trust. It asks for your actual life. And it's happening right now. I also just love the reminder that the Jigyasu, the curious one, the curious seeker, is a rare and special being, as Zach said. And if you're listening to this, then that is you. To be curious in this way, to seek truth in this way, to keep turning toward what matters. That is not a small feat. It is sacred and it is beautiful. And I'm so inspired by the listeners of this show. And as Zach said, it's so important to keep our attention on what actually matters, to be discerning about where we place our energy, what we give our time to, and who we keep close. Good company matters. Community matters. People in our lives who understand the importance of this inner work, who support what it means to walk the path, who remind us of what we value. That kind of company is everything. And because our sadhana is not separate from our life, our sadhana is our life. It's spaces like these which I really feel so inspired to keep uplifting, to keep shining the flashlight onto what yoga truly is. It's not just a physical exercise, or as our teacher Stuiji says, it's not get fit. It's a work in. And if this season of a Curious Yogi podcast leaves us anywhere, maybe it's here with a little more reverence for the tradition of yoga and a little more honesty about the human experience and a little more trust in the actual path itself and the trust that the truth is there already within us. We just need to close our eyes and see it for ourselves. This practice asks a lot of us, as I've already mentioned, as all the guests have already mentioned, but it also keeps pointing us home. And while that home may be shared, the way we walk towards it is deeply, beautifully our own, which is why I love to hear the expression and the reflection of all of you listeners. So please drop me an email. Let me know what you think of the podcast. Let me know what you want more of. Please leave reviews and let us know what you think. Join the Patreon community. Become more of a part of this little corner of the internet that is really here to support your sadhana. Thank you for listening. Thank you for practicing. And just thank you for being here. Sending you lots of love. And I'll see you all next season with lots more beautiful guests, beautiful satsangs, and lots more community. So Amaram Ham, Madaram Ham. See you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/acuriousyogi-podcast. And please leave a review. It really helps the show reach more people. Let's stay curious, connected, and keep walking the path together. In total delight, this is Bobby signing off until next time.